my son put out a challenge to me and said, "Dad, why don't you consider going on stage at 60?" And that would be a real challenge and a real sort of landmark to move toward. And I thought at first it was a little bit presumptuous to do something like that, but the more I thought of it, I thought, hey, it wouldn't be just a question of just doing it for myself, but I think there's a lot of other people that might be encouraged to do it. So I think the interesting thing was, in terms of conditioning, I was probably able to get myself in better cosmetic shape at 60 than I was in my mid-20s. Now, I wouldn't have had the same strength and flexibility and endurance, but in terms of looking at the pictures, you realize that you can really get yourself in marvelous shape if you combine diet with exercise and train properly. And that was probably one of the biggest things that I was quite shocked about, that at my age that I could actually look at pictures of myself in my mid-20s and realize that I had probably as much or more muscle mass, more chiseled, leaner body than I had had when I was a youngster. So I think in terms of encouraging older people, and not just older people, it's amazing the number of young people that will come up to you in the gym and be quite taken with the fact that this senior citizen can still hold his own with a lot of young people in the gym, you know. So what I began to realize is that bodybuilding is probably 85% or higher, 90% diet. I began to really understand that diet was really the issue if you were going to compete, and I knew that if I was going to go into a competition, I had to listen to Sebastian, take him seriously, and really go through the diet religiously, and not play around with it at all. And that's where that prepared me for the show. And when I went on stage, I had lost about 30 pounds and down to a pretty lean 170, and normally I would be hovering around 195, 200 pounds. So that was quite an experience. As we get older, it's nice to know that we can do certain things to look as good as we possibly can at our age. I wasn't sure what I was going to expect, because it was my first time I was ever on stage doing bodybuilding, so you can imagine how nervous I was. And I was opening the show that night, and I remember the commentator saying, we've got a guy on stage, coming on stage in a few minutes now. He's almost 60 years of age, and he's a little bit nervous, and would you please welcome? And when I walked on stage, I just got almost, I felt like a standing ovation. People just were so there with applause and everything. I just thought, wow, it's worth it. It doesn't matter if I get a trophy, it doesn't matter if I win anything, just having this experience is really enough. Yeah, interesting. We were sitting at the computer and working on a sketch. And just by way of introduction to this, the last time we talked in the office, everything was fine and everything looked in pretty good shape. But between that time and as I'm talking to you now, we had quite an accident. A car backed out of the barbershop here, and backing up to head down the highway, down the main street here, and he hit the gas pedal instead of the brake and ran right into our showroom window here. As you can see, we've cleaned it up quite a bit, so you can't see the disarray and the mess that we had when we came, but when we experienced this little episode. But he backed right into the shop window, hit it so hard that everything was moved about 4 or 5 inches. The base of these monuments moved out, and the tablet, which is the main monument, toppled over, hit the next one, it toppled over, and oh boy, what a mess in the shop. Ann and I had been just sitting at the computer table doing a sketch when this sound was like a bomb that went off. Fortunately, it wasn't that, it was just granite, but what a mess. And interestingly enough, there was a woman sitting in this chair, which would have been disastrous. It could have been devastating. There could have been something more than just an accident. It could have been fatal, because these monuments are extremely heavy, 600-700 pounds, close to 1,000 pounds, some of the big ones. And it would have been just really a sad situation. So we're thankful that nothing serious happened in terms of injury, some damage to the building, but we'll be able to get that back into shape soon. So
We have to be prepared for everything in this business.
Well, Dad's never been one to want to let exercise get too dull. Join us after the break and we'll find out one of his favorite outdoor activities.
Yeah, I would find it almost akin to something a lot of people would look for spiritually. And after I've had a real good round of snowshoeing and lots of exercise, I find a nice place. It's lovely by the river when you get a nice flowing brook or an open spot in the river where you can really enjoy the water. Build a fire, and I'll often read and really enjoy the devotional dynamic that is there, because you've got the peace, the solitude, the tranquility, and there's a real sense of feeling God's presence in that situation. Often before you go out, you just think, oh boy, there's quite an effort involved in getting ready to go. Maybe I won't. But as soon as you discipline yourself to get out the door and you just hit that snow and away you go, you're just so thankful that you made the effort. When I'm walking along a trail like this, if I find a birch tree, I'll grab a little bit of birch bark, or if I see some what they call old man's beard, it almost looks like a green bearded moss, I'll just pick those things up and put them in my pocket, because when a fire comes, I may not be near anything that would help me start the fire. So this is a handy thing to have, so that's why I'll be stopping the odd time just to grab something that will help get that fire going. So we're off. You might be wondering, in terms of the things that I have on, you notice I have an axe hanging from my hip, a piece of rope, wool pants, a wool vest, and this hat I got in Alaska. Actually, it was up in Wilderness Communities up in Whitestone, which is quite far north in Alaska, and they sent me back with a lot of furs just out of appreciation for the visit we had up there. But this is a Blue Fox fur hat. And it's warm, but it also breathes nicely. There's nothing like fur. When you're out, if you get warm, it's so much different than wool. So when you're walking like this in a cold day, you just are so comfortable with a fur hat like this. The rope is always good for any kind of emergency you might need it for. It's always nice to have a piece of rawhide shoelace or something in case you fall with your snowshoes and binding tears. You can use that shoelace or piece of rawhide to temporarily fix things. So there's a lot of little things that will make it easier when you're snowshoeing and trekking, just in case you run into a snag of some kind. It's good to be prepared. But just to go out and have a nice day of recreation in the wintertime, nothing is as nice as just putting on a pair of snowshoes and just getting right off the trails where people would normally be cross-country skiing. There might be a lot of activity, but just to break a whole new trail through the woods and find a nice little place where you can build a fire, boil the kettle, have a cup of tea, and just really enjoy the peace and the quiet, the tranquil surroundings, that's really hard to beat. It's just so peaceful and restful. And I think, especially when you're living a fairly pacey life throughout the week, I don't think we realize how much we just need to get away and have that kind of opportunity. So I love that. That's a wonderful, wonderful kind of recreation. One of the other things you probably notice is a little change in headgear. That fur hat is wonderful when you're walking because it breathes, but when you're around a fire with the tail flopping around, it's better to put on a nice little toque where everything's tight and you don't need the warmth as much because you're moving around, the fire's going. So it works out well this way.